And whenever I turn on a pan, since I don't use oil, I just put a little bit of water in the bottom, and when it starts bubbling and sputtering, I know that it's nice and ready. So while that is getting ready, I'm going to prepare my eggplant. This is about a half a pound eggplant. And we are going to prepare it by peeling it, because we don't want that rough peeling on there. So I'm just using my Y peeler, and I'm going to peel that right off to the side here, and I'll show it to you. So I'm just peeling it. It should go pretty quickly. Okay. Now my water is already boiling in my pot, so I'm going to go ahead and add my first ingredient, which is about a half cup of chopped red onion. If you didn't have red onion, you could use another color, white, yellow onion. If you don't like onion, you can just leave it out. So usually recipes have you saute the onion first because it mellows out that bitterness and it brings out the sweetness in the onion. If you really like sweet onions, you can just buy a sweet onion to begin with as well. Now you can do sauteing like this just with no water added. That's called dry sauteing, which is totally fine. The idea is the less liquid you add, the more flavor you get. You just have to keep your eye on it and make sure that you keep it moving so it doesn't burn. But if you're like me and you get a little nervous and you want to add a few drops of water, go ahead and do that. We just don't want to steam it or boil it, because that doesn't have the same effect as sauteing. All right, so let me finish. Okay, so there we go. We've got the eggplant all peeled mostly. I will cut off that end. I want to get rid of all of these peelings. I'm also using my favorite Mac knife here. This is also on my website. It's just a great knife. It's about a 7.5 inches, I believe. It's my everyday, everything, pretty much everything knife. So now I'm just going to cut the top off the eggplant. I'm going to cut the very end off, so I'm just left with all of the whitish green. There's a little bit of skin on there. Let me get that off. Now I'm just going to chop this into little cubes. Just little bite-sized squares-ish. And I'm burning my onions there. Let me stop and add a little bit more water. A little brownie is fine, but we don't want to go crazy here. So that's step one. And step two, we're going to add our eggplant here in a sec. I guess I could go ahead and throw these pieces in. So just cut one way, turn it, cut the other way to get little bite-sized pieces. And then we'll go ahead and do the other side here. Okay. This little stove that I'm using, the brand is Winco, and I'll tell you that because I usually get people asking me what brand it is. But it's really nothing too special. It's just a portable stove that takes butane canisters like this. But you can get all kinds of portable stoves. I like having this one because when the electricity goes out, I can use it to make food. because it doesn't rely on electricity. Okay, so we're almost here. All right. And the canister I'm using is low, so I might have to change it during cooking. It still looks like it's going though. Okay. So we've got the eggplant in there. We're going to put in about a tablespoon of this garlic that we chopped earlier. And it looks like that might just probably be a tablespoon. Yeah. So a tablespoon of chopped garlic. An eggplant can stick to the bottom fairly easily, so you want to keep an eye on it. Add a little water if you need to. Next, we're going to add a tablespoon of dried Italian herb seasoning, which is basil, oregano, thyme. And this is the kind that I get, these Italian herbs, salt-free from Savory Spice. And then we're going to add about a teaspoon of the ground cumin. Okay. Then we're going to put in 2 cups of green beans that have been cut into, 1-inch-ish pieces. I like fresh green beans. I go to the trouble of snipping the ends and cutting them myself. If you want to use a canned green bean or a frozen green bean, you could. I don't think it would be as good, but you could certainly do it if you needed to. I think green beans and eggplant go so well together. Look at that, it's starting to look pretty. What do I say? 1 medium carrot sliced, about 3/4 cup. And I like to slice my carrots kind of on the diagonal so they're interesting looking. And a couple ribs of celery. And 1 cup of corn. This is organic frozen yellow corn. If you want to use canned corn, you could. Just make sure you read that label, make sure they haven't added corn syrup and a bunch of salt or anything that you don't want to be eating. And you can also cut the corn right from the corn cob if you want. The purple onion is kind of pretty in there. Kind of adds a little nice visual. Okay. Celery. Oh, and we're also going to add a 1/2 cup of water at this point that I have measured out already there. So now what we're going to do is cover this so the carrots and the celery and the green beans can really get cooking. And this should only take about 10 minutes. Okay. This is looking great. Okay. So I knew this would take a little while to cook, so I didn't chop my tomatoes yet because I thought I could just do that while this was happening. So about medium tomatoes, we want to chop. It doesn't matter how you chop your tomatoes. But we want about 1.5 cups. Is that what I say? Yeah, about 1.5 cups. All right, so we've got our tomatoes here. Last thing we're going to do for this recipe is get 2 tablespoons of the almond butter, so we're going to take a 1/2 cup of water. This is a very basic sauce, if you can even call it that. And let me just check on this. Ooh, this looks good. Okay. All right, so we're going to put 2 tablespoons of almond butter in the 1/2 cup of water. This has a little bit of oil on the top, but not much. Usually where it happens the most is peanut butter, which I don't really buy peanut butter. Peanut butter doesn't digest well with me, so I just kind of avoid it. What was I just saying? Oh, so the peanut butter usually has a lot of oil on top, and I will pour that off, but this didn't have very much. So there's 1 tablespoon. And sometimes I'll use my finger to kind of, I know, is that gross, to get it out. And if you don't want the almond butter, you can leave it out. If you want to add the tahini instead of the almond butter, you can do that. I'm all about flexibility and options in cooking. And I don't really like a heavy sauce on this. I just like a nice little light sauce. A little, you know, a little richness goes a long way. And I found since changing 100% plants, no salt, oil, sugar way of eating many years ago, that I don't need as much fat in my desserts, in my sauces. I mean, I was a dessert queen, and now if I just have 2 bites of a dessert, I can be really satisfied. I mean, I won't waste the rest, but sometimes I'll just want something sweet when I'm at home, and I'll have an almond with, I'll have a medjool date with an almond in the middle or something, and that will satisfy my little sweet craving. So I'm just mixing this up in the water. It doesn't look that fabulous, but we just don't want to put the glob of the almond butter straight in there. If you want to use your little blender to blend this up, you could do that too, but why dirty your blender? Okay. If you had a totally different sauce that you wanted to put on top of this, like you had marinara sauce already made, or pesto sauce, that would be really good too. All right, so I'm going to throw my tomatoes in. Let me shift again. There's a lot of shifting happening today. So you can see the final product here. Okay, I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to put in the tomatoes. Give it a little stir. Oh, isn't it pretty? I mean, the way food looks really matters. It can't look like ugly, just brown health food. It has to look colorful and appealing. All right. And I think one of the most important things about flavor in this way of cooking is starting with good quality ingredients. So if you have a farm stand near you or a farmer's market, you get that good, fresh, organic food. I know a lot of people can't get organic food, or they can't afford it sometimes, but just get the best that you can afford and find. Okay. Last, we're going to add in our, and let me just double check. Okay, almond butter into ½ cup of water. Remove the cooked vegetables from the heat. Oh, I didn't do that yet. Let me go ahead and turn this heat off. Okay, so I'm just going to pour this watery sauce in. If you wanted to use like a non-dairy milk too, like an unsweetened soy milk or something, you could probably do that as well. There's a lot of flavor going on already in here, so we don't really need a big flavor bomb sauce. I might add some black pepper to this. If you like things hot and spicy, you might want to put some red pepper flakes in here. See what I mean about the color of the eggplant? It's just not the most appealing color. So I've made up for that by putting lots of color in the other stuff. So with this dish, it might be nice to plate it into like a pasta dish like this. So it has a nicer presentation. And you could just eat this for an entire meal. You don't even have to have anything else. But you could have like a little salad if you wanted to. All right. So there we have it. Eggplant stir-fry. If you had something else in your kitchen or your garden you wanted to throw in that isn't part of the recipe, go right on ahead.